The airplane cabin maintained its peaceful atmosphere at 35,000 feet. It held that distinctive calm where travelers immerse themselves in literature, melodies, and comfortable blankets. However, this tranquility shattered in an instant when Evelyn Moretti, the elegant wife of a billionaire, suddenly slumped forward in her seat. Her diamonds glimmered faintly beneath the cabin lights as her eyes closed and her head fell lifeless. Gasps pierced the silence. A business executive cried out for help, and the air became thick with panic. This was a moment when time seemed frozen, when every heartbeat resonated like thunder, and when no one seemed to know what to do. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of ordinary people to change lives in extraordinary ways, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Untold Stories because tales like this remind us that miracles often come from the most unexpected places. Evelyn Moretti was much more than simply another passenger. She was the wife of Adrian Moretti, one of the world's most influential billionaires, seated just one row in front of her. Adrian clutched his head in despair as he shouted for medical assistance, his voice trembling in a way no one had ever heard from this man known for his ruthless composure in boardrooms. Flight attendants rushed forward, but their training protocols seemed to blur under the pressure of the moment. They searched for medical help among the passengers, but no one stepped forward. People whispered anxiously, some pulled back, consumed by fear. In this chaos, a young man in a blue janitor's uniform, sitting awkwardly near the back of the plane, stood up. His name was Marcus Hale, a 17-year-old working part-time as a cleaner at the airport. He had no right being on this flight. An administrative error had accidentally bumped him up to a standby passenger after his shift cleaning the very plane he now sat on. He was heading home to visit his sick mother in a small town. His ticket was a gift from a kind supervisor. He had no wealth, no influence, and certainly no medical expertise. But something inside him couldn't let him sit there while someone's life slipped away before his eyes. Marcus pushed through the narrow aisle, his heart pounding like drums in his ears. Passengers stared, some muttered, others showed contempt. What right did this kid have to think he could help? But Marcus had seen things others hadn't. His mother had battled heart disease for years, and he had spent countless nights by her side when she would collapse, learning from paramedics and local nurses about emergency care. He had no medical degree, but he had something almost as valuable: courage, instinct, and the will to try. He knelt beside Evelyn, noting her shallow breathing and the blue tint to her skin. The flight attendant stepped back, unsure whether to intervene, but Adrian's desperate eyes met Marcus, silently begging him to do something. The boy placed his hands on Evelyn's chest and began compressions, steady and focused, just as he had practiced on training dummies during free community classes. Each push was a prayer, each breath he gave her was a silent promise that she wouldn't die alone. The cabin fell quiet, except for the rhythmic sound of his work, the mechanical hum of oxygen being prepared, and Adrian's quiet sobs behind him. Minutes felt like hours. Some passengers whispered that it looked hopeless. Others closed their eyes in silent prayer, but Marcus didn't waver. Sweat poured down his face, his arms ached, but he kept going, his teenage determination burning brighter than any diamond Evelyn wore. Then, after what felt like forever, Evelyn gasped, a weak, fragile breath, but breath nonetheless. Her chest rose slightly, and her eyes fluttered open just enough to show awareness. A collective gasp swept through the cabin, followed by relief spreading like wildfire. Adrian Moretti, the man who owned skyscrapers and business empires, collapsed in tears as he reached forward to hold his wife's trembling hand. Flight attendants quickly applied oxygen masks. Passengers erupted in applause, and Marcus slumped against the aisle wall, exhausted, tears in his eyes, not from weakness, but from the overwhelming realization of what had just happened. But what touched people most deeply wasn't just that Evelyn survived. It was who had saved her. The contrast was striking. The rich man's wife, draped in wealth and status, had her life pulled back from the edge of death, not by a doctor, not by another billionaire, but by a teenage janitor in a cheap uniform who had been invisible to most of society just hours before. This was a moment that stripped away the pretenses of class and position, revealing the basic truth that compassion knows no boundaries. As the plane prepared for an emergency landing, Adrian sat next to Marcus. For the first time, the billionaire saw not just a kid, but a hero. Adrian's gratitude was wordless. His tearful nod and shaking hand on Marcus' shoulder spoke louder than any speech ever could. In those quiet moments before touchdown, Marcus thought of his mother, of the night she had told him he was stronger than he knew, and he felt for the first time that she was right. When the plane landed, paramedics rushed Evelyn to a hospital where she continued to recover. News of the event spread quickly. Headlines blazed, "Teen Janitor Saves Billionaire's Wife at 35,000 Feet." Interview requests flooded in. Reporters chased Marcus everywhere, but through it all, he remained humble. He didn't see himself as a hero. He had just done what his heart told him to do. Adrian, however, would never forget. The man who had always believed that money could fix anything learned that sometimes salvation comes from the most unlikely places. In the weeks that followed, he visited Marcus and his mother, offering not just financial help, but genuine friendship. Evelyn, still weak but recovering, took Marcus' hand at a press conference and called him her guardian angel in human form. The story of Marcus Hale was more than just news. It became a symbol of humanity's quiet strength, proof that heroes don't always wear the clothes of power. Sometimes they wear the simple uniforms of those society overlooks. On that ordinary flight, in that extraordinary moment, a boy no one expected stepped up to save a life, and in doing so saved something much bigger. He saved hope, faith, and the belief that kindness in its purest form can change everything. If this story has touched your heart and reminded you of the hidden strength in everyday people, please consider liking this video, sharing it with friends, and subscribing to Untold Stories for more tales that celebrate the power of compassion and second chances. And before we end, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe heroes are born, or are they made in the moments that matter most? Because sometimes it takes a crisis at 35,000 feet to show us that real heroes are already walking among us, quietly waiting for their chance to do the impossible.